I would argue that what do we know that's already in the public domain that gives an insight into what he's actually like, Diddy? And I would point to that horrific video in the hotel corridor where he beats up his girlfriend at the time, really appallingly. And he does that with impunity, not seeming to care that there may be CCTV footage. That showed a guy who's capable of horrific violence against his own girlfriend. And at that point, you know, my thinking about all the allegations was, well, yeah, I reckon he's probably capable of pretty much anything. Any man that could do that to a woman in a hotel corridor is not a nice person. And they're perfectly capable of criminal acts, because that was one of them.
And he should be charged with being not a nice person. He should be charged. He should be charged with domestic violence. He should be charged with battery. He should be charged with anything. He arguably could be charged with assault with a deadly weapon, hands or feet. That has nothing to do with sex trafficking. It has nothing to do with the White Slave Trade Act. It has nothing to do with human trafficking. Those are the charging Diddy with those in the historical context is almost laughable. This takes woke-ism to a new level in the law. The Mann Act and the White Slave Trade Act was not designed to be applied to a movie producer, a movie director, a recording artist bringing in someone to have sex with his wife or his girlfriend while he watched. He beat her like a dog, and he should go to prison for that. Unfortunately, he was never charged, and the same people in New York who want to charge everyone else, or L.A., didn't charge him for a simple corporal punishment to a spouse or cohabitant. That's what it is, but two things can be true at the same time. That is a crime, without doubt. It is not sex trafficking, without a doubt. It is an abuse of a woman, without a doubt. It is cowardly. It is uncool. It is all of those things. It is not sex trafficking by any stretch of the imagination. You can never find...
Okay, no, I hear you. Let me bring in Brandon Tatum. You're listening patiently to this. So it's all wokeism.
Well, I think you have a perspective from lawyers, which I understand why they would have a very methodical perspective of what is the law, what does the evidence show. But then you also have the reality of it. P. Diddy and some of these other dudes are gangsters. They literally have people in fear. I honestly believe that if anybody were to turn on them, trade on them, lie on them, you could get killed in the streets. So they have this gangster lifestyle that's more real than what can be presented in the court of law. And I guarantee you there may be a lot more evidence and people who would be forthcoming, but they don't want to end up getting killed. You know, Suge Knight was a gangster. Snoop Dogg was a gangster. All of these rappers, they live a very hard life, and they got people around them that'll do dirty business if they have to get to it. So I do understand that as a former law enforcement officer, you can only go with what the evidence shows, and you can only go with what can be presented in the court of law, what's admissible in the court of law. However, on the other flip side of it, people get away with stuff all the time because they know how to move and shake. P. Diddy is not dumb. He's savvy. He got money. He got influence. He got lawyers. They're going to get him in the best position humanly possible, but that does not mean that he's not potentially responsible for these things. And it was evident with him beating up Cassidy and probably beating up other women like that this dude he's very capable of doing all the things he's accused of.
Yeah, I mean, Lord Jamar, we've talked a lot about this case since it first blew up. I've got to say, it's the first time I've had people be quite so defensive, is probably the wrong word, but so kind of prepared to say this might be massively overblown. And they both happen to be top criminal lawyers, which is significant, I think.
Well, again, you know, as lawyers, I understand their perspective. And I agree that on a lot of cases, lawyers do get fired and all of that type of stuff. The thing that was telling to me by this particular lawyer's resignation is when he stated, by no circumstances can I work on the case. That little caveat right there made me feel like he may have been, you know, privy to some sort of information that made him say, you know what, I cannot defend a monster like this. I don't know. I'm just saying That's a possibility. It could be just a regular changing of the guard, like these gentlemen said. But when I first heard it, and when he said that particular, under no circumstances, it just made me think, well, why did he feel that? Did he have some sort of, you know, conscious, thing of change of heart, once finding something out? I don't know. I think it's worth asking, though.
It is.
Well, my response to that would be, I get it, because that's, obviously you hear that and you say, oh, he must have discovered something. If that was the case, and I don't see anything to support that. If that was the case, the last thing the lawyer can do is what was done. You can't suggest, you've got a duty to your ex-client. Your duty to your ex-client survives even after death. So even if you want off the case, you can't disparage or suggest or do anything. So I think I get the reaction. I hear you, and that makes sense. But I can tell you that no self-respecting lawyer is going to get off a case because he says, I can't deal with the evidence. I've defended cases. Matt has defended cases where the clients, you may not want to bring the clients home for Thanksgiving dinner, but that's no justification for suggesting, and I don't think that that was done here, that you saw something in the evidence and that's why you're here.
Do you think do you think he's going to walk, Mark?
Do I? Look, all I know is what I have been seen, and I keep reading in the public filings. The public filings are, and unfortunately in this case, nobody seems to pay attention to them, because the public filings, the defense keeps suggesting that there's only 3 people here. All 3 were ex-girlfriends, that there was no trafficking. The latest one that Matt just referred to was a challenge to the Mann Act. And the challenge to the Mann Act is they actually had to change the name of the act that they're charging him with years ago, from the White Slavery Act to the Mann Act. The defense says no black man has ever been charged in this particular circumstance until Diddy. Are you telling me in the history of our country, Diddy's the first guy who gets charged with an act that's been around for God knows how long, number one? Number two, are you also telling me that it's 3 ex-girlfriends and that this guy, and I don't necessarily disagree that that rappers have unsavory reputations, but you can't, to Matt's point and Tate's point, you can't convict somebody. We have specific code sections in the criminal law, 404 in federal. You don't just do a character assassination and then convict the person. You don't convict them because they're bad people. You don't convict them because I don't like them because they live a thug lifestyle, which, by the way, I didn't even know I was able to use thug anymore. I thought that was, speaking of wokeism, I thought thug was taken off the table. But the fact is, we do not convict people in America based on them being bad actors. We convict them based on bad acts. That was Cassie's involvement in that hotel hallway, a bad act? Absolutely. But as Matt says, the statute ran on that.
Okay, let's just pivot.
And the other thing about this, real quick, on this issue that the lawyer says, it's a term of art. It's like in law when you say we've had irreconcilable differences in a divorce. People say, well, that must mean he beat her. That must mean she beat him or was cheating. It doesn't mean it's a term of art. This lawyer has to make specific showings to the federal judge to be allowed off the case. And one of the ways you do that is that we've broken up and we can't get back together. And all he was saying is we've broken up and we can't get back together. In court, we often call it, we're waiting for Mr. Green to arrive, or Mr. Cash hasn't arrived. Everyone understands what the term of art means. And in this case, it means I'm not getting along with this dude because I want to be the big dog or the top dog, or I'm not getting paid enough money. It's nothing, there's nothing below that or should be read into it at all.